Good morning, Northside. This is Miss Cooper with your weekly summary review. This week we discussed Chapter 2. We were working through the objective that states students will be analyzing the age of the Enlightenment, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and discuss their enduring effects on political expectations for self-government and individual liberty. That was our objective for the majority of this week. And what we got a chance to discuss was Chapter 2 in your world history textbook. And I'm going to give you some summary information because you are going to have a quiz on tomorrow. So I want to make sure that you have been looking at all of those lists that I've been giving you throughout the course of the week. The first list that you had on Tuesday, where you were given a YouTube video, I was doing some reading. Rene Descartes, John Locke, rationalism, empiricism, the scientific method, Francis Bacon, inductive reasoning. You also had to take notes on Voltaire, Montesquieu, Diderot, Isaac Newton, the philosophers, the concept of laissez-faire. Those were things that were extremely important. And if you can think back, I want you to make sure that you connect those items to either a definition or an identification. Either if it's an idea, such as the Enlightenment. Okay, think about the Enlightenment thinkers. Think about John Locke. Think about Isaac Newton. Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes is connected to I think, therefore I am. He was French. The idea of rationalism is also connected to Rene Descartes. Francis Bacon was an English philosopher, okay, and he's responsible for the use of the scientific method. John Locke was, I'm going to read this part about John Locke. It says, prior to the Enlightenment, knowledge was something acquired through careful study of the works of classical thinkers like Plato and Aristotle. But as the foundations of science and the scientific method began to take shape in the early modern period, philosophers began to recognize the value of observation and experience. Thinking about learning in this way, the 17th century British philosopher John Locke, he is one that wrote this essay concerning human understanding and talking about the idea that all of your knowledge should be based on your experiences and the things that you've observed from having those experiences. That is how you gain more knowledge. So John Locke is an important name. Isaac Newton, he is also an important name. And basically his advances in scientific investigation gave us information about asking more questions. Ask more questions. It says, for example, Galileo realized that the Ptolemaic universe was fundamentally flawed. The fact that the Earth was in the middle, okay, that was something that had been thought because of Aristotle for like 1,000 years, and Galileo actually helped invent a telescope and said that's not even true. So we began to question what we had been told with the Enlightenment. We started asking more questions and doing more investigation. Then we had the idea of inductive reasoning and empiricism, breaking things down and having a clear, concise understanding of why something is what it is. The philosophers were, that's a French word, but everybody that was a philosopher was not French. That's just a word that was used for a person who was a philosopher, a great thinker. Montesquieu was French, and he's the person that pretty much incorporates that idea of separation of powers, wherein he kind of got from the English, because the English had gone through Oliver Cromwell and the Glorious Revolution and the Restoration, and come out with Parliament being having a representative government. Okay, they had a monarch who didn't have all power. They had Parliament, and even to this day, England is, set up with a prime minister that's like a president, and the Parliament that's like the Congress, and the king and the queen still exist, but they don't really write anything down. It's a queen, not just a king. But Queen Elizabeth II is who is a part of the royal family of the United Kingdom, which was previously England or Great Britain. That's who those people were. Voltaire, another French individual, he criticized Christianity, but he also championed deism, which was a philosophy based on reason and natural law. Okay, this is Voltaire. Helped spread the Enlightenment ideas through his writing. Denis Diderot, he went to the University of Paris. He pursued a career in law and also did a lot of work in the church. His father pursued a career in law and the church, but he did not choose to go in that direction continually. He watched his father do these things, but he kind of had a different idea. His most famous contribution to the Enlightenment was the Encyclopedia. Okay, Diderot, connect him to the Encyclopedia. New social sciences, the idea of laissez-faire is a French word that means hands off, and it basically refers to the business world. Not so many regulations. Stop having all these rules. That's what laissez-faire was all about. And it works if it's not gone to the extreme. If you don't want anybody telling you what to do, you run your business raggedy. But if you have too many rules and regulations, then you don't have freedom to enterprise. Free enterprise. Okay. Political thought and the Enlightenment. We had this idea of authoritarian situations or institutions. Authoritarian kind of sounds like absolutism, so keep that word in mind. The Magna Carta was a very important document, and if I did not have that on any of your other lists, I'm going to make sure I put that on your list today, along with the feudal system. The Magna Carta was a document that kind of set the groundwork for the United States Constitution. So this is how the Enlightenment affected the American Revolution. All these thinkers had ideas that people in America who had left England, some of them left France, and they ended up, as colonists in the New World. And England had a lot of colonies. So these people had British ideas, and a lot of the British modern ideas came from the Enlightenment. The Social Contract, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. That's an important name. You need to make sure you got his name understood. And with his book, Inequality of Mankind, he said there ought to be a social contract. We ought to be in agreement with what we're doing here. If there's a leader, the people who he is leading or she is leading, we ought to be in agreement on how the leadership is going to go. Ultimately, Enlightenment thinkers saw governments that did not respect the social contract as illegitimate. Okay? They felt like, ultimately, Enlightenment thinkers saw governments that did not respect the social contract as illegitimate. People argued were free to overthrow such a government and to create a new one that would better reflect the will of the people. Okay? So some people felt like, the social contract is more important than who's in power. If who's in power is not abiding by what the people really want, maybe we need a new person. Then we have religion, okay? Because the growth of reading. This is what makes women more educated, being able to read, being allowed to read, having access to books. So Mary Wollstonecraft, you read about her in your bell ringer. She is a person who was extremely important and an advocate of women's rights, okay? So keep her name in your mind, and if you want to Google her, you can, Mary Wollstonecraft. Her name will be on your list today in your email. Religion, the Methodist Church is born during the Enlightenment. We have John Wesley, whose name is connected to the Methodist Church. Women's rights, a lot of women felt like men in power over them would make up rules in an arbitrary manner. That word arbitrary, it's a vocabulary word. It means whenever you want to, arbitrary. I might decide to change my hair blue today. I might decide to go cut your head off today. I might decide to put you in jail today. An absolute ruler can come up with a rule out of a bag of nothing and just, we're going to cut everybody's head off today. So women felt like this was happening a lot when it came to them. Arbitrary rules were being made, and things that they would have to say would be dismissed. So yeah, women's rights was a big deal during this time. Music, Mozart, okay? Very, very powerful person, a child prodigy, gave his first concert at the age of 6, wrote his first opera at 12. He failed to get a regular patron to support him financially, and it made his life miserable. He couldn't get paid to do his music or to exercise his gift, and so he was miserable for a lot of his life. He was like totally a genius. All right, so at the end, lesson 2, the Enlightenment, absolutism, and the balance of power. I'm going to summarize these 2 sections, and I'm going to provide this study guide for you as an attachment, so you need to read every document that I send you as an attachment. It's important. So again, the second lesson dealt with the 7 Years' War. 7 Years' War was fought in 3 areas of the world: Europe, Asia, and North America. In Europe, Prussia seized Sicilia while France invaded Austrian territory. In 1763, Austria officially recognized Prussia's permanent control of Silesia. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Either way, that's Europe's component of the 7 Years' War. Remember I said every war is three things. Who's fighting, why are they fighting, who won? Okay, every single war. And every time we talk about one, if I ask you to write about one, I'm going to need that information. Who's fighting, why are they fighting, who won? Definitely put the date. Definitely put the place. Okay, so we've got Prussia in Europe. We've got Prussia seizing Silesia while France invaded Austrian territory. Okay, in 1763, Austria officially recognized Prussia's permanent control. In Asia, France took Madras in India from the British. After the Treaty of Paris in 1763, the French withdrew and left India to the British. Okay, the French. Okay, the French took someplace in India. North America, the British captured the French fortress of Louisbourg at the entrance of the St. Lawrence River. By the Treaty of Paris, the French transferred Canada and the lands east of the Mississippi to England. Spain transferred Spanish Florida to British control, and in return, France gave its Louisiana territory to the Spanish. You see how we ended up with the Louisiana territory when it ended up in the hands of France. Okay, but see how it belonged to somebody else at first? This is how the whole history of the world is written. Who won what war and who gets what territory. That's how it works out. And then the events of the American Revolution. In 1765, colonists revolt against the British taxes they think are unfair. Taxation without representation. The Boston Tea Party, they threw it off into the water. 1774, the First Continental Congress convenes and urges colonists to form private armies to fight the British. In 1776, the colonies officially declared their independence from Britain. They were tired of being bullied by, you're supposed to be our mom, but you're way across the water and you're making us pay bills that we didn't make. Taxation without representation. They didn't like that. In 1781, the British surrender. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris, it's always a treaty, recognized the independence of the colonies, is signed, and it became the United States of America. In 1787, the United States Constitution is approved, forming the government that rules today. Okay, so that document will be in your attachment. And your choice activity is going to look very much like it looked last week. You'll have a choice of the PowerPoint, a timeline. I think I may add a map skill. I may not. And then there's the YouTube skit. Most of you did a good job with the PowerPoint. If you do the PowerPoint, you need to add, instead of 4 slides, 8 slides. Keep the 4 that you already had and add 4 more. Okay, if you're going to do a YouTube skit, I'm going to have different scenarios. You just need to come up with one. One war is going to be talked about, the French Revolution, maybe the American Revolution. Figure it out. Get your friend to do it, your cousin, your dog. Make a little skit, write it out, act it out on YouTube. Do it on a phone, okay, or your computer and your camera, and download it, okay, or upload it. That's the word. Upload it to YouTube. Okay, if you're doing it from your phone, you're going to probably download it onto either your Drive or your Google Drive, or you can put it on a flash drive. It doesn't matter. The point is, as long as you can take that video and upload it on YouTube. If you need a tutorial, I'll send you another video to help you with that. Because some people didn't want to do it because they felt like it was too hard, and that's okay too. Let's see, the timeline. The timeline is going to have dates that go from where this chapter starts, and this chapter starts with the Enlightenment, and the place and time is 1500 to 1800. Okay, 1500 to 1800. And make sure you annotate. Okay, and I'm going to have different things in that little part of the email so you can know exactly what events must be recorded on the timeline. All right, folks, that's your summary review. If you have additional questions, comments, or concerns, please reply to the email or give me a call at the Google Voice number. That's a 901 number. If you don't know it, send me an email and I'll send it to you so that I don't have to say it over here because this is public. So that's how come I do it that way. But I hope you guys do well on this quiz. Remember, keep your notes. These quizzes are open note. So you can have notes beside you when you're working on all of these things, okay? And make sure you're going, that's why it's comprehensive, so that you will forever keep up with these notes and be able to go on and get to the end and retain this information. You'll have to see Western Civ all over again in college. You'll have to see, all the way through 12th grade. You're going to be dealing with some type of a history class and beyond. And even if you don't have a class in school, you have the world that you have to live in. And it's good to know what has happened and why is it happening. All right, well, that's all I have. And peace and love until next time.